What's up everybody? Now that we've had some time to play around on the new Paris map on the PTR, there's quite a bit to talk about regarding how the map plays, the various story tidbits which could possibly be pointing at new heroes, and also the possibility of this map being featured in the upcoming 2019 Archives event. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. Now first up, for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to play the map just yet, I wanted to quickly share my thoughts about how it actually plays. It is an assault map, so a lot of people are probably going to be quite biased against it, but I do have to say that I've been loving playing on it so far. Granted, that generally applies to all new maps because, well, it's big new content, but I get a feeling that Paris could easily be one of the better assault maps we end up having in-game. As for how it actually plays, the first point reminds me a lot of Temple of Anubis. The defenders have a slight high ground position between the point itself and a choke point that the attackers have to push through, but of course the attackers do have some flanking routes to more effectively push in. Now Temple of Anubis is probably my favorite of the current assault maps, so perhaps I'll be a little bit biased in how much I actually enjoyed playing this first point of Paris, but so far I have to say that this first point is a lot of fun. Moving on to the second point though, this is where it gets really interesting. This is actually a fairly unique point layout, as the attackers can push in from basically any direction. Unlike Hanamura or Horizon, where the attackers do have alternate routes around the side to push to the point, most of those ultimately stem from the front of the point itself. On Paris though, you get this huge open sort of courtyard with all kinds of cover on both sides, making it really easy for the attackers to have a formed push from basically any direction. Because of this, when you're playing as the defenders, it feels like you just have to always be watching your back, as even if the enemy team doesn't have any flankers, it's really easy for you to get flanked by basically anyone. I'm betting that this is going to lead to some pretty unique and interesting gameplay strategies on the second point of this map, and as you'd expect, I'm really excited to see what people end up coming up with. But overall, the entire area of the second portion of the map is very big, and there's so much like detailing and cover on these side pathways that you can basically sneak an entire team with tanks and all just around the side and they won't see you until you're actually ready to go onto the point. Definitely some fun strategies to be had, and once again, I think this leads into the map feeling very fresh and new in the gameplay strategies we're gonna see, and I'm super excited to keep playing on this more as time goes on. Anyways, enough about the gameplay portion, let's talk a little bit about the story of Paris. Now, despite being a French map, there don't appear to actually be any sort of little story clues or indicators referencing Widowmaker, or her husband Gerard. I was actually quite surprised by this because it seemed like, well, it's a French map, why wouldn't they put in at least something? And we do get these posters showing off sort of like a ballet performance, which could be sort of like a reference to Widowmaker because of course she was originally a ballet dancer. But if anything, this feels just like a subtle nod and not actually anything significant in terms of the story. Now, Widowmaker does technically have her own map already with Chateau Guillard, but it seemed like they would have added a bit more than what we have here. Beyond this though, there really isn't a lot that stands out when it comes to referencing known aspects of the Overwatch story and factions. I was half expecting there to be a secret room with a bunch of Talon intel in it, or a laptop somewhere referencing one of the Petra archaeologists. But no, it seems pretty disconnected from the rest of the story and characters that we know so far. We do get introduced to quite a few new characters though, the first being Luna, of course, in the attacker's spawn room. People seem to have fallen in love with her already, and I can definitely see why. She has a nice singing voice, and definitely makes the attacker's spawn room feel quite cozy and unique. I really don't think she's necessarily going to be a new hero, given that, well, we already see her on the map, but if she ever happens to mysteriously disappear later down the line, well, then maybe that should be something we should be paying attention to. The idea of a singer-dancer hero is quite interesting, and not really something we have so far in-game. We have Lucio, but he's really more of a DJ, so I wouldn't really consider him the same thing. Maybe this would actually make for a good base for a future hero concept of mine. I might have to hold on to this one and see what I can come up with. We do get a number of other characters shown off in different posters and graffiti. However, the other ones that stand out to me the most are the Omnic criminals we see shown in the police station. Now, if there are any new characters we see on this map who will end up being a future hero, I'm pretty confident it's gonna be one of these guys. That's not to say necessarily that I expect we're gonna see one of them as a new hero, but if any of them are going to be a new hero, I think it's going to be one of them. Each of them seems to carry just so much personality with the way they pose and the way they dress. And assuming that they're either supposed to be some kind of Omnic revolutionaries or Omnic rights radical protesters or something along those lines, I feel like that's actually another really interesting concept for a future hero, which we don't see currently in-game. The current playable Omnic heroes we have are all pretty definitively good. Bastion, you could argue, is a bit neutral, but I think he's pretty good. I mean, he's in tune with nature and has a bird. I don't know if it gets much more good than that. So it could be really interesting if Blizzard were to add a new hero who maybe wasn't some sort of super powerful Omnic Talon tank like a lot of people want, which for the record, I have no problem with a hero like that, but instead getting more of a revolutionary sort of hero who might be super for Omnic rights, but has a very radical way of showing that, to the point that, well, you could consider him a villain. I don't know, once again, something to definitely keep in mind. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on this police station, because if any of these character profiles end up changing at any point in time, well, once again, that'll be an important thing to pay attention to. Moving on now from the current story and heroes that we could possibly be seeing here, another thing which stood out to me right off the bat, and I've seen a lot of people bring up, is the possibility of Paris being the setting of the 2019 Archives event. Now, I think the reason for this feeling stems heavily from the fact that there's a lot of aesthetic similarities to both Rialto and King's Row, which of course were the two previous Archives mission maps. And given that we see quite a bit of Omnic equal rights activity going on here with the posters in this corner and the graffiti all over the place, it's quite possible that we could see either the reintroduction of Null Sector in some form, or maybe even just some other kind of radical Omnic faction going on here. This graffiti in particular, to me, definitely seems to be saying that perhaps France itself is blinding the Omnics, which, given that Omnics seem to be very equally accepted here, is a rather interesting thing to be pointed out. You have an Omnic singer in the cabaret, you get plenty of posters suggesting that Omnics are at the very least considered equal to humans here, but at the same time, most of the wanted posters in the police station are of Omnics, and you do get these sort of graffitied area over here where it looks like things might not be going as well as they seem. Again, this could possibly be hinting at another sort of Omnic uprising taking place here in Paris, in which case that could easily make for a possible new Archives mission if Overwatch has to now move into Paris to deal with some kind of uprising. I don't know, admittedly it's too early to say. I will remind you that Rialto was actually first introduced with the 2018 Archives mission, so it's entirely possible that whatever map we end up getting in April or May this year will in fact be the one tied to Archives once again, and Paris might, well, just be Paris. I will also note that the Paris map itself, being Assault, isn't quite as spacious as we've seen with King's Row and Rialto, which were a hybrid and escort map respectively, but at the same time there are a few blocked off pathways we can see on the Paris map, which I could easily see Blizzard opening up to new areas that would only exist on the Archives PvE version of the Paris map. So maybe there's something here, maybe there isn't. Again, I do think it's too early to tell, but as always, it's fun to speculate, and I would love to hear your ideas about it down in the comments below. Do you think any of the characters we see here will be future heroes, and do you think this will in fact be the setting for an upcoming Archives event? Regardless, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off. I'm gonna play some more Paris because I'm loving this map so far, and until next time, have a great day.